My name is Emily Harper, 34 years old, an architect at Harper and Stone Architects in Seattle. For years, I thought I had built a life as solid and carefully designed as one of my projects: a handsome fiancé, a dream career, and a wedding plan down to the last flower petal. But 3 months before I was supposed to walk down the aisle, the blueprint of my life cracked apart. I discovered that the man I loved, Ethan Caldwell, 36, a rising real estate entrepreneur, had betrayed me. And the worst part? His affair wasn't with a stranger. It was with my younger sister, Chloe Harper, 28, a social media influencer who thrived on attention. They didn't just steal my future. They had the audacity to send me an invitation to their wedding, complete with a mocking note: "Come see what true love looks like." I didn't cry. I didn't hide. Instead, I chose to attend. I slipped into the white wedding gown that was supposed to be mine and carried with me a secret powerful enough to shatter their world. This is the story of how I turned heartbreak into triumph, not with tears, but with patience and a flawless plan. If you're still listening, we want to sincerely thank you for spending your time with us. Truly means a lot. We'd love to know, where in the world are you watching from? Drop your country in the comments and let's see how far this message has reached. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, I highly recommend doing it now so you won't miss any of our upcoming stories. These aren't just ordinary stories. They're filled with meaningful life lessons that can inspire, teach, and stay with you long after the video ends. Hit that subscribe button and join our growing community. The story began the moment I stepped through the grand wooden doors of St. James Cathedral in downtown Seattle. My heels clicked against the marble floor, echoing louder than the organ's hesitant notes. Heads turned in unison. Conversations faltered. Then came the murmurs, sharp, cutting whispers that rippled like waves through the pews. She dared to wear white? Unbelievable. How brazen. But I didn't flinch. I had chosen my Vera Wang gown deliberately, the dress once meant to crown my own wedding day. Today, it was no longer a symbol of broken dreams. It was my weapon. Pearl stitched along the bodice caught the colored light spilling from the stained glass windows, refracting into glimmers that made me shine like a declaration of war. At the end of the aisle stood Chloe, my younger sister, radiant to the untrained eye, draped in silken roses, her blonde hair woven into an elaborate braid crowned with white blossoms. Beside her, Ethan. His tuxedo was the same one he had once tried on for me, his hand gripping hers like a lifeline. His face turned pale when our eyes locked. That small flicker of fear gave me the satisfaction I had come for. I tilted my lips into the faintest smile. Not too much, just enough. Enough to unsettle him. Enough to remind him that I wasn't the broken woman he had left behind. Chaos stirred at the altar. Margaret, the wedding coordinator, bustled down the aisle, her cheeks flushed with panic. "Miss Harper, we weren't expecting." I raised my invitation, the card that had arrived with their cruel note. My voice carried, calm and deliberate. The invitation said 2 o'clock. I'm right on time. A hush spread. People glanced from the card in my hand to the fury in Chloe's eyes. I brushed past Margaret and slid gracefully into a pew, 3rd row from the back. Crossing my legs, I let the train of my gown spill across the aisle like a quiet provocation. Then I felt it, my mother's eyes on me. Susan Harper, 60, prim and precise even in retirement, her mouth hung open as though I had slapped her without touching her. Next to her, my father, Robert Harper, 62, sat rigid, jaw clenched so tightly I could see the muscle twitch from across the cathedral. Their silent disapproval stung, but I wore it like armor. They had always preferred Chloe, always smoothed over her recklessness while demanding perfection from me. Today, they would see who I had become. Chloe's hand clamped around Ethan's, her manicured nails pressing into his skin. She tried to compose her face, but I caught it, the quick flicker of panic, the tightening of her lips, the fire in her eyes that betrayed her unease. Perfect. Let her wonder what I carried in my bag. Let her imagine every possible way I could ruin this charade. The organs swelled again, the melody desperate to cover the tension that strangled the air. Father Thomas, the priest, hesitated by the altar, shifting his gaze between Chloe, Ethan, and me as if silently praying for guidance. No training had prepared him for a bride's sister arriving in full bridal attire. But none of them knew. Not Ethan, not Chloe, not even my parents. Inside the small clutch purse resting in my lap was a wooden box. It was unassuming, carved with simple lines, yet it held everything. 6 months of quiet preparation, years of hard-earned discipline, and documents, cold, unforgiving, and legal, that would strike harder than any shouted accusation. I traced my fingers over the clasp of the purse, steadying myself. I had not come to cry, nor to beg, nor to humiliate myself. I had come to reclaim my story. Chloe shot me a glare, sharp enough to cut glass. I met it head-on, my face calm, almost serene. She didn't know it yet, but the game was no longer hers to control. For years, she had thrived in the spotlight, basked in the glow of her curated image, fed on the applause of strangers who believed every filtered moment she sold online. But the world outside Instagram was about to meet the real Chloe Harper. I let the silence draw out, let the whispers coil tighter around the cathedral. And then I leaned back, folding my hands over the purse in my lap. Today, I was not merely the betrayed sister, the abandoned bride, the discarded woman. Today, I was the reckoning. And before the vows could be spoken, before the rings exchanged hands, everyone inside this cathedral would witness how carefully a woman could turn heartbreak into fire, and fire into justice. 2 weeks earlier, the war began not with a confrontation, but with an envelope. It arrived on a Tuesday afternoon, tucked neatly among bills and catalogs, almost innocuous. But the moment I saw the shimmering pearl paper stock, my breath caught. I knew it instantly. I had chosen that design myself, months ago, when I still believed in fairy tales. Smooth, expensive, understated. It was supposed to carry my name. Instead, it bore Chloe's handwriting, sharp and practiced, each curve of the letters dripping with venom. Dear Emily, family should share joy together. Come and see what true love looks like. Love, Chloe and Ethan. I read it again. And again. The words carved themselves into me like ice picks. She hadn't been content just to take Ethan. No, she had to twist the knife. She had stolen my fiancé, stolen my wedding, and now she was parading it before me with a flourish. For a long moment, I sat frozen, the blood in my veins turning cold. My hands trembled as I traced the embossed edges of the invitation. It wasn't enough for her to win. She wanted me broken, humiliated, crushed under the weight of her victory. Called Rachel. My oldest friend, my anchor. Rachel Miller, 35, a freelance journalist with a quick wit and a heart that had carried me through college heartbreaks and career failures. She picked up on the first ring. The moment I read her the message, her voice cracked with outrage. Don't go, Emily. Please. That's what she wants, to make a spectacle out of you. She wants to laugh while you drown. But Rachel didn't know everything. She couldn't know. 'Cause a week before that invitation arrived, I had sat in a dimly lit office across from James Carter, my grandmother's attorney. 55, meticulous, with spectacles that glinted under the desk lamp. He spoke slowly, deliberately, as though each word was a hammer striking a nail. Your grandmother, Evelyn Harper, left behind more than the family realized, he said. There is a will, her true will, that was sealed for 6 months after her death. She wanted it that way. She wanted you to be the one to hear it first. The Harper name had always belonged to Evelyn. She was the founder of Harper and Stone Architects, the woman whose blueprints shaped half of Seattle's skyline. She had raised us on discipline and vision. To Chloe, she had always been a figure of resistance, someone who demanded substance, not selfies. To me, she had been more than a grandmother. She had been a compass. Now, in James's office, I learned the weight of her last words. The sealed will would rewrite everything: property, shares, control, the Harper legacy itself. I walked out of that office with my heart pounding, my mind clear. This wasn't about revenge. Revenge was petty, fleeting. What I carried was justice, truth sharpened into a blade. For 34 years, I had played the dutiful daughter, the reliable sister, the steady architect who built while others destroyed. Now it was time to stop playing small. So when Rachel begged me not to attend, I only smiled faintly. She couldn't see the pieces falling into place. She couldn't see the storm I had prepared. Later that night, I dialed Ethan. Just once. He answered on the second ring, his voice uneven, guilty. "Emily." "I can explain." I cut him off, my tone cool, measured. "Save your breath. Just tell me this. Are you sure you're happy with your choice?" There was silence. I pressed the knife a little deeper. $10 million, Ethan. That's what's at stake. I hope she's worth it. I hung up before he could respond. The silence on the other end was all the satisfaction I needed. In that moment, I knew Chloe thought she was staging a wedding. What she didn't know was that I was preparing for a reckoning. A reckoning written not in whispers or tears, but in the ink of legal truth and the weight of legacy. 2 weeks of preparation lay ahead. 2 weeks to sharpen patience into steel. And when the cathedral doors opened, I wouldn't be a victim stepping into their story. I would be the author, holding the pen that could end it. Growing up in the Harper household meant living in Chloe's shadow. I was the trial run, the rough draft, while she was the polished masterpiece my parents paraded before the world. When Chloe turned 16, a silver Mercedes appeared in our driveway, wrapped in a giant red bow. The neighbors clapped, and Chloe beamed for her camera, broadcasting the moment to her growing audience on Instagram. On my 16th birthday, I got something else, an hour-long lecture about responsibility and a bus pass tucked into an envelope. "You need to learn the value of hard work," my father said, as though discipline were a gift that could outshine a car. At family gatherings, the comparisons were relentless. "Chloe is so lively, so charming. Emily, why can't you be more like your sister?" I learned to smile tightly, to retreat behind my books and sketches. Even when I graduated from MIT with a degree in architecture, an achievement that took years of sacrifice, my celebration was muted. Chloe's modest communications degree from a state college earned her a bigger party, a larger crowd, and applause that seemed endless. "Emily, you're too serious," my mother once scolded, looking over my architectural drafts with a frown. "Men don't like women who are too intelligent." I swallowed those words, as I always did. Meanwhile, Chloe collected trophies that weren't hers to claim. She dated my high school boyfriend. She slid into my tennis team position with a smile that won over the coach. She even managed to secure an internship at a prestigious architecture firm after overhearing me talk about it for months, an opportunity that vanished from my hands the moment she expressed her interest. It was as if life bent itself to Chloe's will. The rules changed whenever she entered the room. The only person who seemed immune to her spell was Evelyn Harper, my grandmother. She had founded Harper & Stone with her own hands, her own mind. A woman who built glass towers when women were expected to serve coffee. Evelyn saw through Chloe's gloss and charm. One evening, when I was 17, I sat with her on the porch. She held my hand, her grip strong despite her age. "You have something Chloe will never possess," she whispered. "Patience. The ability to build something that lasts." Back then, I thought she meant architecture, the lines, the angles, the vision that had driven me since childhood. But sitting here now in this cathedral, watching Chloe preen at the altar in her white silk gown, I understood Evelyn had meant something deeper. She had seen the foundation of resilience inside me, laid brick by brick through years of quiet injustice. She knew patience could outlast glamour. She knew endurance could outshine charm. And now, as the organ faltered and the crowd whispered, I finally believed her. This wasn't just about Ethan, or even Chloe. It was about me standing tall in the place they had tried to bury me. And this time, I wasn't stepping aside. Cocktail hour before the ceremony was buzzing with life, laughter, and the faint clinking of crystal glasses. The garden behind St. James Cathedral had been transformed into a dreamscape. Lanterns swaying from the branches of old oak trees, champagne towers shimmering under the afternoon sun, and roses everywhere, their scent heavy in the air. Should have been perfect. To everyone else, it was. But for me, stepping into that crowd of 200 guests, it was the prelude to war. As I entered, conversations faltered for a fraction of a second, and curious eyes turned toward me. I could almost hear the whispers behind manicured hands. Some admired my courage, others judged my audacity. But all of them noticed me, and that was enough. The check-in table, a young woman in blush pink chiffon slid a pen toward me. Brittany, one of Chloe's bridesmaids, smirked. "Didn't think you'd actually show up," she sneered, her eyes flicking to my gown. I leaned down, signing my name into the guest book with calm precision. "Wouldn't dream of missing it," I replied smoothly. Her smirk faltered just slightly. A waiter offered me champagne, but I declined. My senses needed to be sharp. Instead, I scanned the garden, noting details with the same focus I once used when reviewing blueprints. Each person was a puzzle piece. Each interaction a thread. Table 19, I found my assigned seat, a dim corner near the kitchen doors alongside a cluster of staff family members. The insult was deliberate, a calculated humiliation. I smiled to myself as I pulled out the chair. They thought they could relegate me to the shadows. They didn't know I thrived there. From my vantage point, I spotted Richard Bennett, CEO of Bennett Enterprises, swirling his glass of champagne as he conversed with Ethan's parents. His laughter boomed across the garden. None of them realized the irony of their conversation, how Ethan, the supposed golden boy, was drowning in debt. $250,000 to be exact. Not to mention the credit cards he had secretly opened under my name. And then I saw them, the 3 board members of Harper & Stone, standing quietly at the edge of the crowd. They weren't on the guest list. Yet here they were, their eyes finding mine. They gave the smallest nods, subtle acknowledgments. My pulse steadied. James Carter had done his work. Chessboard was ready. As the sun dipped lower and the cocktail hour bled into ceremony time, the guests filed back inside the cathedral. I followed, gliding past the curious stares, the whispers, the sideways glances. My heels struck the floor like a metronome, steady, deliberate. The organ filled the air as Father Thomas cleared his throat and began the ceremony. Chloe glowed at the altar, her smile rehearsed, her hand gripping Ethan's like a lifeline. Ethan, however, looked pale, sweat beading at his temple despite the cool air. I waited. And then it came, the priest's words, ancient and binding. "If anyone here has reason why these two should not be joined in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." The silence that followed was sacred, expectant. I rose. Every head turned. The organ faltered, then stopped. Cathedral fell into a silence so deep I could hear my own heartbeat. Whispers surged, then died again as I stepped into the aisle, the hem of my gown brushing the marble floor. "I object," I said, my voice carrying clearly through the vaulted arches. "On legal grounds." Gasps rippled through the congregation. Chloe's triumphant smile shattered, her lips parting in disbelief. Ethan's hand slipped from hers, his face ashen. I approached the altar, every step measured, controlled. From my clutch, I withdrew the small wooden box, the one that had traveled with me like a silent heartbeat for weeks. I placed it gently into Father Thomas's hands. "These," I said, my tone calm but unyielding, "are documents pertaining to the estate of Evelyn Harper. They directly impact this marriage." Before Chloe or Ethan could speak, James Carter rose from his seat among the board members. His gray suit, polished shoes, and commanding presence silenced any murmur of protest. "I am the Harper family's attorney," he announced. "These documents are authentic, legally binding, and must be read aloud immediately." Priest hesitated, then nodded, opening the box. His brows furrowed as he unfolded the papers, scanning the pages. And then his eyes widened. Clearing his throat, he began to read. "The entirety of the Harper estate, valued at $10 million, is bequeathed to Emily Harper, provided she is unmarried or marries an individual with stable financial standing, as approved by the Harper and Stone Board. Any Harper family member who marries someone with debt exceeding $50,000 or engages in financial fraud shall forfeit all inheritance. Furthermore, any individual who engages in infidelity with a person already engaged shall be permanently disqualified." The words detonated like thunder. Cathedral erupted. Guests gasped, whispered, turned in their seats. I stepped closer, my voice calm yet sharp enough to cut. "How much is your debt, Ethan?" "Over $250,000, isn't it? Not to mention the credit cards you opened in my name." Color drained from his face. He stammered, his lips moving soundlessly, but no words came out. Chloe's grip tightened around his arm, her knuckles white. Her face, once painted with smug confidence, now looked gray, her eyes darting wildly between the priest, Ethan, and me. "And there's more," Father Thomas continued, his voice grave. "Any marriage founded on financial deception may be annulled by law." The silence that followed was unbearable. Even the air seemed to still, heavy with shock. This was the moment. The reckoning Evelyn had prepared me for. The justice years in the making. And I stood tall, no longer the overlooked sister, no longer the dutiful daughter. Today I was the heir, the truth-bearer, the one who held the legacy and the power. The cathedral was no longer Chloe's stage. It was mine. "Collapse," Chloe screamed, her voice shrill enough to cut through the stunned silence. "We're not married yet. This doesn't apply." But Ellen Wright, one of the senior board members, rose to her feet. Though petite, her voice carried a thunderous authority. The public engagement was enough to trigger the morality clause in Evelyn Harper's will. And marrying your sister's fiancé is a direct violation of family ethics. This is not a private matter anymore. It's an issue of honor and legality. Every eye in the garden snapped toward Ethan and Chloe. The champagne bubbles, the hum of music, the glittering lights, all of it seemed to vanish into the suffocating weight of silence. Ethan's face glistened with sweat. He stammered, desperate, like a cornered animal. "Prenup. Chloe, you signed the prenup." Chloe's head whipped toward him, her face pale then flushed crimson, eyes blazing. "What prenup? You told me it was just a formality, to protect your assets." I stepped forward, a cold smile tugging at my lips. My voice cut through the tension like a blade. "Assets? Do you mean your gambling debts, Ethan? Or the credit cards you secretly opened under my name?" Gasps rippled across the crowd. Phones lifted, flashes sparked. The wedding had become a trial, a public reckoning, and Ethan was the accused. My parents surged forward, frantic. "This is a family matter," my mother cried, her voice cracking. "We will handle it privately." But James Carter, the family attorney, was merciless. "No, Mrs. Harper. Not anymore. Robert Harper embezzled millions from Harper Holdings. The board has proof, and a formal investigation will proceed." Color drained from my father's face, leaving it an ugly shade of purple. His lips moved, but no words came out. Truth hung in the air like smoke, undeniable and choking. Richard Bennett, the CEO of Bennett Enterprises, rose from his chair. His gaze was sharp, cold, and direct. "So, Mr. Harper, you've been running a company you don't own, siphoning money you can't account for? Where has it gone?" My father looked down at the ground, silent. For the first time in my life, I saw him stripped of all authority. At the altar, Father Thomas cleared his throat, his voice amplified by the microphone. In light of these revelations, and in accordance with the will and law, I hereby declare this wedding nullified. This union cannot proceed. The words echoed like the final strike of a gavel. Chloe let out a blood-curdling scream. She hurled her bouquet to the marble floor, petals exploding like a broken promise. She turned on me, her eyes wild, her mascara running in black streaks. "You'll pay for this, Emily. I'll sue you for everything you have." I didn't flinch. My reply was steady, each word deliberate. "With what money, Chloe? You quit your job months ago to plan this circus. Ethan is bankrupt. What exactly will you pay your lawyers with? Instagram likes?" A ripple of laughter broke through the tension. Chloe's mouth opened, then closed. She had no answer. I turned to the crowd, straightening my back, my voice carrying with quiet power. "Thank you all for coming. The celebration will continue because I paid for it." Applause erupted, hesitant at first, then growing louder. Strangers who had pitied me now looked at me with respect. I wasn't the abandoned bride anymore. I was the woman who turned betrayal into justice. As I walked away, Chloe collapsed into sobs, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Ethan, pale and trembling, was cornered by two detectives stepping quietly from the shadows. They led him aside, murmuring about fraud investigations, consequences, and triumph. The fallout was immediate. By morning, the video of the wedding that never was had gone viral. 5 million views in less than 24 hours. Headlines screamed, "Runaway groom exposed at the altar and sister steals fiancé, gets publicly destroyed." Comments poured in. "Grandma Evelyn was a genius. Emily is a queen. That influencer sister just ruined her life on camera." Chloe's career as a lifestyle influencer disintegrated overnight. Brands cut ties, followers unfollowed in droves. Within weeks, she was spotted working behind the counter of a bakery on the east side of Seattle. No filters, no sponsorships, just a hairnet and flour on her apron. Ethan, meanwhile, retreated to his parents' house, the once proud real estate entrepreneur reduced to a disgraced man facing charges of fraud, embezzlement, and identity theft. His charm couldn't save him now. Creditors circled like vultures. My parents, Robert and Linda Harper, suffered their own downfall. The embezzlement scandal stripped them of the last of their prestige. Their names, once linked with wealth and society, became synonymous with corruption. They sold their home and moved into a modest apartment, their phones silent, their invitations revoked. And me? I rose. With the inheritance fully secured, I became CEO of Harper & Stone Architects. It wasn't just a title, it was validation, recognition of my years of hard work overshadowed by family chaos. Richard Bennett, impressed by my composure and vision, signed a $50 million contract with the firm. Overnight, our company leapt from a regional name to a national powerhouse. My employees celebrated not just the contract but the leadership I promised to bring. And amidst the professional triumph, something unexpected bloomed. Daniel Brooks, 37, a structural engineer I had known only in passing, asked me to dinner. Over coffee and quiet laughter, I told him the truth, the whole messy, viral drama. He listened without judgment, only smiling softly at the end. "Your grandmother was extraordinary," he said. "And so are you." For the first time in months, I felt my heart steady. Not the desperate thrum of betrayal, not the hollow ache of loss, just calm, genuine connection. I had walked into that wedding ready to end one chapter of my life. What I didn't expect was that it would open the door to something far stronger. I didn't win with tears. I won with patience, truth, and a plan crafted with precision. And as the world watched Chloe and Ethan collapse under the weight of their lies, I stepped into my future with grace. Because in the end, victory is sweetest when it's earned, not through revenge but through resilience. Lessons in closing. 6 months later, an envelope arrived at my office. The handwriting was unmistakable, Chloe's. Inside was a letter filled with regret. She admitted to envy, to arrogance, to letting her insecurities fuel every cruel decision. For the first time, she said the words I had longed to hear: "I'm sorry." I read it in silence. My heart softened, but I wasn't ready to forgive. Healing isn't instant, it's a process. Still, I finally understood what my grandmother had meant when she told me patience is not weakness. Patience is strength. Patience is the quiet discipline to hold steady while the storm passes, to prepare for the moment when truth reveals itself. On the wall behind my desk, I hung Evelyn's portrait. Every time I looked at her wise, steady eyes, I was reminded that justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it arrives quietly in the form of preparation, endurance, and the courage to wait. From this journey, I've drawn 5 lessons I want to leave with you. 1. Boundaries are essential. If you don't set them, others will decide your worth for you. 2. Betrayal reveals character. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. 3. Patience is power. Waiting isn't passive, it's an active choice to be ready when the time comes. For justice often takes time. Trust the process, rushing only leads to mistakes. 5. The best revenge is living well. Building a life of purpose and joy outshines any attempt to hurt you. So, if my story resonates with you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and join the conversation below. What boundaries will you set in your own life? Thank you for listening. And remember, true victory isn't about destroying others. It's about building yourself so strong, so steady that nothing and no one can shake your peace.